Bismillah walibni warohil kudus al-ilahul wahid. Demi nama Bapa, Putra, dan Rohul Kudus ketiganya yang esa. Shalom sahabat yang dikasih oleh Tuhan. Berjumpa kembali dengan saya di channel ini. Terima kasih telah mendukung perkembangan channel ini dengan cara subscribe, memberi like, sehingga video dari channel ini direkomendasikan oleh YouTube untuk menjangkau banyak orang. Teman-teman juga boleh memberikan komentar yang cerdas dan dukung saya dengan cara men-share video dari channel ini di berbagai media teman-teman. Terima kasih, Tuhan memberkati kita. Sahabat yang dikasih oleh Tuhan, terlebih dahulu saya menyampaikan kepada kita semua selamat Paskah. Semoga kebangkitan Kristus dari kematian menunjukkan perubahan yang baik dan semakin banyak orang yang menerima Yesus di dalam kehidupannya, karena Yesus satu-satunya juru selamat umat manusia yang berdosa. Sahabat yang dikasih oleh Tuhan, kali ini kita akan melihat berita yang mungkin membuat teman-teman akan lebih cerdas. Bagi teman-teman nggak perlu kepanasan, karena berita kali ini merupakan sebuah fakta bahwa di negara-negara tertentu yang mayoritas bahkan sangat Islamis, mereka akhirnya memutuskan untuk percaya kepada Yesus. Mungkin ini berita akan membuat Anda sedikit terganggu, tapi kalau teman-teman memakai dengan kesadaran dan juga pikiran yang dingin, hati yang dingin, maka teman-teman akan terus dibawa kepada satu pengertian kenapa kok mereka akhirnya menjadi pengikut Yesus. Dan kali ini videonya merupakan video yang sangat gamblang teman-teman. Jadi supaya informasi tidak putus, teman-teman boleh mendengar dengan teliti dengan baik, supaya teman-teman mendapatkan wawasan dan semoga terbuka pintu hidayah, memperoleh jalan keselamatan, dan akhirnya percaya kepada Yesus, Tuhan dan Juru Selamat secara pribadi. Bagaimana videonya? Ini dia teman-teman, mari kita simak dengan baik.
We have a very special guest that we just were able to get to come and be with us in the last 24 hours. Some of you may have heard of him, some of you haven't, but he has an amazing story. Never heard a story quite like this before. His name is Mosab Hassan Yosef. And let me tell you a little bit about him. Mosab is the oldest son of Sheikh Hassan Yosef, a founding member of Hamas. And Mosab was being groomed to take over Hamas, or be one of the primary leaders in it. He was involved in the Intifada, and something happened that was unexpected. He was arrested by the Israelis. He was held captive in one of Israel's most feared prison facilities, and there the Israelis approached him about being a spy for them to the members of Hamas. And Mosab agreed to this, not initially planning on really spying for the Israelis, but possibly being a double agent. But while he was in prison, when he saw the mistreatment of Muslims to fellow Muslims, he began to rethink his whole position and ended up being one of Israel's most effective spies, saving many, many lives, averting terrorist bombings. Because of the brave choices that he made, he prevented suicide bombings, he exposed terrorist cells. Many lives were spared because of the courage of Mosab Hassan Yosef. And then the story takes another twist. A British cabbie shared the gospel with him, and he gave his life to Jesus Christ. There's much more to the story than that, but the reason we could not announce this ahead of time is there are security concerns. As you could probably well understand, for a man with this background to make a stand like he is taking takes great courage. He's written a book called Son of Hamas that is out right now, and it is our privilege to welcome Mosab Hassan Yosef to our conference. Thank you, Lord. Welcome.
Thank you very much. It's a privilege to be here. I'm very happy to be between you guys. Thank you.
Thank you very much. You were raised in a Muslim home in Ramallah. Is that correct?
Yes.
And you, in your book, The Son of Hamas, talk about the fact that Islam is like a ladder, A lot of people, especially in America, don't understand Islam today. They don't know what to think of it, you know, because possibly the most public face of Islam is the terrorist and terrorism in general. And so people don't understand the stages and the variations within the Islamic faith. Maybe you could explain this ladder and how that worked in your own life.
First of all, what I can say that Islam is the biggest lie in the human history, and it's a perfect lie. It's a lie that Muhammad lied to his people and to everybody 1400 years ago. He wrapped this lie with layers of facts, truths, morals, which made it a perfect lie that deceived billions of people. Now Islam, I describe it as a ladder because it's a religion of works. No. It's not a relationship. You do things and there's a reward at the end of the day. So you keep climbing this ladder. Most traditional Muslims are standing on the first rung of that ladder, and they start climbing, praying more, fasting more, doing more charity, and getting closer to their God. The highest rung of that ladder is jihad. This is the holiest duty of a Muslim, jihad.
And what is jihad?
Jihad now, they are trying, you know, to explain it as a struggle. But it's not struggle. Jihad means fighting, using force, using the sword for the glory of Allah. Muhammad did it himself, and Muhammad is the highest example of every Muslim. In fact, Muhammad is more important to Muslims than Allah himself. Muhammad created the personality of Allah to give him authority to do what he wanted. He couldn't say that I am Allah and worship me, so he created Allah into their minds. And he made them worship this God, but simply they were worshiping him, they were doing his will, and it's all about Muhammad. Now Muhammad, as the highest example for Muslims, himself, he killed thousands of people. He cleansed entire communities, like Jewish communities in the Arab Peninsula that didn't agree with him, and they didn't even collaborate with him. So we're talking about a first-class killer that killed people who didn't agree with him, and this is the highest example for Muslims.
Sekian juta manusia, maka dengan membunuhnya itu adalah bahagian daripada rahmatan alam. Orang Islam yang baik itu yang menjadi teroris. Buka Al-Anfal ayat 60. Datangkan kiai siapa, ustaz siapa, bahwa orang Islam itu hadir jadi teroris.
So now when Muslims come and tell me or tell everybody that Islam is not radical Islam is not Islam. There is no such a thing, radical Islam, because Islam is radical from the first place. Right. And there is no need to define. And what I say, that the God of Islam himself is the biggest terrorist. Instead of chasing a ghost like Bin Laden and all those small terrorists, the God of Islam, he's the responsible number one. He's the motivation behind all those terrorist attacks in the world. And this is the real enemy that we need to be fighting.
Yes, you said in an interview with the Wall Street Journal, the problem is not Muslims, the problem is with their God. They need to be liberated from their God. He's their biggest enemy. That's pretty much what you're saying here.
Yes, now I might look like to Muslims that I'm taking stand with the West against them, with America against Islam, with Israel against Islam. And I tell them, you know something, I'm taking stand to your side against your God, because your God is your biggest problem. Your God has been enslaving you. Your God is sending you to death. Your God is destroying you. And imagine how dangerous that they bow their knees 5 times a day to their biggest enemy. Yeah. And they don't recognize it. Very dangerous. And the consequences to recognize, like just to recognize this and fight against it, this means that you put in yourself a death sentence. Those are the weapons that God of Islam uses against Muslims. The demon of fear, demon of guilt, demon of shame. Even Christians in the Middle East, they see me as traitor today. I'm sorry to say that. And this hurt me very much. Why? Because I didn't take stance toward Israel against Palestinians. I was saving human being lives. Yeah. Israelis and Palestinians, and we will talk about this in details, but our focus should be not on Muslims. Our focus should be on Islam, the ideology, the God of the Islam. This is the real gangster, I like to describe him. And please, like, you know, try to repeat this, like all the time between your friends. We want, like, to fix the dictionary of the Middle East. The dictionary is wrong. And Islam is not a religion of peace. Islam means submission. Salam means peace. Islam means submission. So we're talking about a religion of submission, that you don't submit, you get killed. This is in the core of that belief and that faith. And instead of humans fighting humans, let's ideology fight ideology. Let's the ideology of love, of forgiveness, fight with the ideology of hate and controlling others, and the idea of destruction, in fact. And this is what we are doing today.
Now, Masab, you're arrested by the Israelis. They ask you to cooperate with them and be an agent for them, a shin bet, as it's called, and they give you a name. You're called the Green Prince. What does that mean, the Green Prince, and what was it they were asking you to do?
Everybody in the shin bet has a code. Like, you know, here in America, FBI use numbers, but in the shin bet, we use codes. So it was Prince because of my father's position as a top leader of Hamas and a top leader also of Palestinians. And green for the flag of Hamas, or the color of Islam in general. So that was why the Green Prince.
So you were able to go back into your community where people knew you, and you were privy to behind-the-scenes information that you could alert the Israelis to people that were potential targets, that could be areas that were going to be targeted, bombings, and so forth, correct?
This is a very complicated work. It's not like informant,
Yes.
somebody who knew about information and he went to the closest phone and made a phone call. It's a different type of job. I was in the heart of Hamas, I was in the heart of Palestinian Authority, in the heart of other Palestinian factions, PLO, Yasser Arafat meetings, because of my father's position. And his position gave me lots of cover and lots of space to move around. Now, it was a joint effort. It wasn't my effort alone. The Shin Bet had lots of information, maybe more information than what I had, but I could put information together, and what didn't make sense to them, it made perfect sense to me, because I'm the son of that culture, the son of that movement, of that religion. So I could solve many puzzles that they couldn't solve. They had lots of information, and they didn't know how to deal with this information. So my job wasn't informant. My job was more complicated. Yeah. And in fact, at some level, I was asked to stay away from the movement so we don't get suspicious somehow. So it was a joint effort. Everybody, many soldiers in the fields, technology resources, and many brave men and women also were working, and nobody knows about them today. They don't show off, and I am not in a position to say, okay, I get the glory, because they cannot talk anything. It was everybody's effort, and I am happy that we could stop the killing of many innocent people, Palestinians and Israelis.
Yes. You know, whenever there's a whenever there's a new president elected, they always have the plan for peace in the Middle East, and we've seen so many of these agreements signed on the White House front lawn, and the people shake hands and they have their photo, and it's broken in such a short period of time. What would you say, Masab, is at the heart of the trouble in the Middle East? What is the heart of this issue?
It's first of all, anybody who wants to solve the problem in the Middle East, they need to understand what the problem first. You cannot go and solve a problem that you don't understand it. So first of all, first step, they need to understand what's going on there. Now the question, do Palestinians know what their problem is? I doubt. Do Israelis know what their problem is? I doubt. So I don't blame the American president. In fact, people who are in charge in there are people behind the scenes, underground groups, and unfortunately, I'm coming from there. Hamas is a very secretive, closed community under the ground. Even Hamas members don't understand what Hamas is all about. They don't know how Hamas operates. And I wrote something in Son of Hamas that even my father, a top Hamas leader, didn't understand how Hamas was operating, which everybody was shocked. So Palestinians don't know about Hamas, and the Israelis also don't know about the Shin Bet. Not every Israeli got the chance to learn how the Shin Bet works. Yeah. So the Israelis also were shocked with my story, as the Palestinians were shocked. It was hard for both communities to believe. So now, this is why I had to pay a very high price to write Son of Hamas, to educate public first. Now, if we can build a public opinion about what's the problem, how a child grow up in that society, and what type of challenges that they face, how they feel. And the picture, I want to make it also that the picture is not black and white, as we think, that Palestinians versus Israelis, those are good guys and those are bad guys. The situation is much more complicated than that. So now, if we start to understand the problem, start to feel with people on both sides, we will be more responsible of our decisions. And at that level, I think US President and all politicians will be able to make more brave steps toward peace in the Middle East. There can be peace. Maybe tomorrow we will hear that there is a peace process and there is the establishment of a Palestinian state, maybe. I see lots of pressure on Israel, lots of pressure on every side, but I cannot guarantee that a Palestinian state will bring peace to the Middle East. Peace starts from the heart of every individual in that region.
Right.
It's not about a government here and a government there.
Right.
And now, what I say that the problem is ideological problem. And to be honest with you, I'm sure that many people understand this, that this is an ideological problem, but they don't want to admit it. They don't want religious war. They don't want war between Muslims and Christians across the globe. But it is ideological problem, and there has been religious war for the last 1400 years. Muhammad claimed that he flew from Mecca to Jerusalem on a flying donkey. This is why Al-Aqsa Mosque is the third most important holy site for Muslims.
Right.
This is why. Simply, how can we solve this problem? Disapprove that this man, flew on a donkey to Al-Aqsa Mosque, and they will stop believing that this is a holy site anymore.
Yeah.
Disapprove their God. You ask Muslims, for example, this is how the ideological problems, like now the fight on Temple Mount is not between Muslims and Jews. It's between the God of the Torah, who gave the promise for his people, for that exact spot, and the God of Islam, the God of the Quran, who gave his people also the promise of that exact spot.
Yeah.
So the war is between the God of Torah and the God of the Quran.
Right.
It's God's wars. It's ideological war. The Bible versus the Quran.
Yeah.
So one of them has to be right, and one of them has to be wrong, and they both can't be wrong, by the way. This can cause a religious war, but one of them has to be wrong, and I'm telling you that the Quran is wrong, because if Muslims... by the way, I say this to Muslims every day. I don't just say it to Christians. One simple question to Muslims. The God of the Quran to them is God Almighty. Allah in Arabic means God Almighty. So Allah in their mind is supposed to be God, the perfect one, who will never make a mistake. So we go to them and ask them, okay, we found several mistakes in the Quran. Can your God make one single mistake? They say, no, there is no way. Okay, let me show you the mistake. No, we don't want to hear it. And if you force them to hear it, they turn their backs and they run. They stuff rags into their ears so they don't hear, simply because they don't want to face the consequences. And this was one of the main reasons that I came public with this. The worst reputation in the Middle East to collaborate with Israel against your people. This is the worst reputation a man can bring to himself. And I said, is this like your biggest fear? I'm taking it. Yes, I did work for the Shin Bet, I worked for the Israelis, and I did what was right, regardless of your shame. So, their God, first of all, we need to liberate them from their God and his weapons against them of fear, guilt, shame. Those are the worst enemies of any society, any community. Here, like we mistake, we sin. I'm the worst sinner. I'm the worst Christian in the world, I think. And but I live by God's grace. I never feel guilty, no matter what I do. Because of that, I am a free man. I am a free man. And this is how Jesus Christ liberated humanity from religion.
No.
And this is, we are not, I don't want to dig deep into this philosophy now, but I think we know the difference between a relationship, the difference between a peaceful relationship between you and your creator and being a slave to your creator. And this is Muslims' problems. Muslims don't understand the Quran. I want to explain this a little, excuse me, I'm extending my
That's fine, go ahead.
Now Americans here.
Puji Tuhan, haleluya. Suatu kabar sukacita ketika ada banyak orang yang akhirnya memutuskan untuk percaya kepada Yesus. Salah satu kelompok yang begitu dibicarakan dan diperbincangkan sampai detik ini masih terus ada. Tetapi akhirnya mereka menyadari dan mengikut Yesus. Tidak peduli latar belakang hidupnya bagaimana. Yang terpenting bagi Yesus adalah hatinya. Mereka memiliki kehidupan yang kelam, tapi di dalam Yesus mereka akhirnya menjadi manusia baru seperti kata firman Tuhan. Yang lalu, yang lama sudah berlalu, sesungguhnya yang baru sudah datang. Entah bagaimana dia bisa kok meninggalkan Islam, tapi dari ceritanya itu amat luar biasa dan saya sangat diberkati dan kagum dengan kejujurannya. Entah pun semua itu benar atau teman-teman menuduh itu bohong, teman-teman tinggal menunjukkan data dan fakta dan membantahnya, tak perlu kepanasan. Sebab orang yang suka kepanasan artinya dia belum dewasa berpikir secara jernih dan tidak dapat menggunakan akal sehatnya dengan baik. Jadi tidak perlu kepanasan. Dan apabila terlalu panas, maka teman-teman mengambil air putih campur es dan minum dulu. Nah, teman-teman yang dikasihi oleh Tuhan, sangat luar biasa perbuatan Tuhan bagi pemuda tersebut. Dan semoga ada banyak orang yang melihat video ini dan akhirnya sadar dan bertanya dengan serius dan berdoa dengan serius, kenapa kok dia seorang putra yang diperbincangkan bahkan juga sangat Islamis, mereka memutuskan untuk percaya kepada Tuhan Yesus. Itu suatu hal yang luar biasa. Dan saya percaya firman Tuhan akan terus tergenapi. Dikatakan dengan jelas dalam Yohanes, bukan kamu yang memilih aku, tetapi aku yang memilih kamu. Saya jadi teringat dengan kisah Rasul Paulus yang sebelum namanya adalah Saulus. Dia adalah seorang penganiaya jemaat. Walaupun dia seorang beragama atau seorang yang ahli dalam Taurat, tetapi ketika Tuhan Yesus memilih dia, tak satu pun dapat membantah bahkan menolaknya. Bahkan Rasul Paulus tidak bisa membantah ketika Yesus memanggilnya. Dengan tujuan yang begitu luar biasa untuk menganiaya jamaat, justru di saat itu Tuhan memanggil dia dan menjadi alat di tangannya. Dengan kebutaannya dan didoakan menjadi sembuh, maka dia menjadi alat di tangan Tuhan. Bahkan sampai di akhir hidupnya, dia menjadi seorang yang luar biasa, menjadi penginjil yang hebat. Dan saya percaya untuk kelompok ini, untuk pemuda ini pun, jikalau dia memang benar-benar sudah ditangkap oleh Tuhan dan berubah, maka dia akan dipakai Tuhan secara hebat untuk memberitakan kabar baik melalui kesaksian hidupnya, melalui pengalamannya, melalui intelektualnya, dan melalui perbandingan-perbandingan yang ia temukan. Teman-teman, saya mengajak kita untuk berpikir, ketika Yesus menjamah hati seseorang, maka akan ada perubahan yang sangat ajaib, perubahan yang luar biasa yang tak terduga sebelumnya. Terima kasih teman-teman boleh melihat video ini. Semoga kita diberkati. Jangan kepanasan sekali lagi. Ini adalah sebuah berita yang bagus untuk mengajak kita berpikir secara luas, jernih, dan tak perlu kepanasan. Karena berkat Tuhan Yesus selalu datang kepada orang yang sungguh-sungguh mencari kebenaran. Sampai di sini video saya teman-teman. Jangan lupa untuk mendukung saya dengan cara subscribe, like, comment, share. Sampai ketemu di video selanjutnya. Bye-bye.